3 years. That's how long Dean Martin has been invisible. No interviews, no performances, no public appearances. His son is dead. The Rat Pack is scattered. The King of Cool has become a ghost, but on May 18, 1990, he steps out of the shadows for one reason: to say goodbye to his brother Sammy Davis Jr. And what happens at that graveside, what Dean Martin does in front of 500 people, will shatter the image he spent 50 years building. Because for the first time in his life, the coolest man in Hollywood is about to fall apart completely. And every single person watching will realize they never knew Dean Martin at all. Thursday morning, Beverly Hills, May 18, 1990. The sun is bright, almost offensively cheerful, for what's about to become one of the darkest days in Hollywood history. Forest Lawn Memorial Park is already filling with mourners, movie stars, musicians, politicians, all dressed in black, all there to say goodbye to Sammy Davis Jr., the man who danced and sang his way into America's heart. But there's one man nobody expects to see: Dean Martin. For 3 years, Dean has been a ghost, ever since March 21, 1987, when his son Dean Paul Martin died in a fighter jet crash over the San Bernardino Mountains. Dean has retreated from the world. The man who once commanded stages in Vegas, who drank and laughed with Sinatra and Sammy, who made millions fall in love with That's Amore, has simply vanished. His manager tried to get him back on stage. The offers were endless. Vegas wanted him. Television wanted him. The world wanted him. But Dean said no, always no. He stopped singing, stopped smiling. Some say he even stopped living. When Sammy Davis Jr. dies on May 16, 1990, after a brutal battle with throat cancer, the entire entertainment industry goes into mourning. Frank Sinatra immediately begins organizing the funeral. He calls everyone: Liza Minnelli, Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones. The biggest names in show business confirm they'll be there. But when Frank calls Dean, there's silence on the other end of the line. "Dino," Frank says, his voice breaking. "Sammy's gone. The funeral is Thursday. I need you there, pal. We all need you there." Dean doesn't respond immediately. Frank can hear him breathing, slow and heavy, like every breath is painful. "I don't know if I can do it, Frank. I don't know if I can watch another brother go into the ground." Frank Sinatra, the chairman of the board, the man who never begs, "Please, Dino, for Sammy. He loved you. He'd want you there." There's a long pause, then Dean says something that makes Frank's blood run cold. "Sammy was my right arm, Frank. When I lost my boy, I lost my heart. Now I'm losing Sammy. I'm losing my soul. What's left of me to bring?" Frank doesn't have an answer, but he knows Dean will come. He has to. The morning of the funeral, Dean Martin's housekeeper Rosa finds him standing in his closet, staring at his suits. He's lost so much weight that nothing fits anymore. His hands are shaking as he pulls out a black suit, the same one he wore to his son's funeral 3 years earlier. "Mr. Martin," Rosa says gently, "are you sure you want to go?" Dean doesn't look at her. He just nods slowly, his eyes empty. "I have to. I owe him that much." Rosa helps him get dressed. She notices how frail he's become. The man who once carried himself with such confidence, such swagger, now looks like he might collapse at any moment. His face is gaunt. His eyes are hollow. The King of Cool has become a shadow. When Dean Martin's car pulls up to Forest Lawn Memorial Park, photographers swarm. They haven't seen him in 3 years. The cameras flash like lightning. Reporters shout questions, but Dean doesn't acknowledge any of it. His bodyguard Marcus walks beside him, practically holding him upright. "Mr. Martin," one reporter yells, "how are you feeling?" Dean stops for just a second. He looks at the reporter with eyes that have seen too much death, too much loss, too much pain. "How do you think I'm feeling?" he says, his voice barely a whisper. Then he keeps walking. Inside the chapel, the atmosphere is suffocating. 500 people packed into the space. Everyone who is anyone in Hollywood is there. But when Dean Martin walks in, The entire room seems to pause. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Heads turn, whispers spread like wildfire. Is that Dean Martin? I can't believe he came. He looks terrible. God, he's aged 20 years. Dean hears none of it. Or maybe he does and just doesn't care. He makes his way to the back row, as far from the casket as possible. He doesn't want to be seen, doesn't want to be noticed. He just wants to be there, quietly, to honor his friend. Frank Sinatra is already at the front, standing near Sammy's casket. When he sees Dean, their eyes meet across the room. Frank's face crumples for just a moment. Then he composes himself and nods. Dean nods back. No words are needed. They've been brothers for over 40 years. They speak in silence. The service begins. Reverend Jesse Jackson delivers the opening remarks. He speaks of Sammy's incredible talent, his resilience, his fight for civil rights, his love for his family. The words are beautiful, but they feel distant to Dean. Everything feels distant now. Stevie Wonder performs Ribbon in the Sky. His voice fills the chapel, achingly beautiful, and people begin to cry. Dean sits perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap, his face expressionless. The mask is still on, the cool exterior still intact. Liza Minnelli speaks next. She breaks down multiple times, remembering how Sammy had been like a father to her, how he'd supported her through her darkest times, how he'd always made her laugh even when she wanted to give up. Her tears are raw and real, and the entire chapel weeps with her. But Dean Martin doesn't move. Then it's Frank Sinatra's turn. Frank walks slowly to the podium. He's 74 years old, but today he looks every bit of it. He grips the sides of the podium and stares down at his notes. But when he begins to speak, he abandons the notes entirely. Sammy Davis Jr. was the greatest entertainer who ever lived, Frank says. But more than that, he was my friend, my brother, my family. Frank's voice starts to crack. We did a lot together, the three of us, me, Sammy, and Dino. We conquered Vegas. We made movies. We drank too much, laughed too hard, and lived like kings. Sammy always said we were untouchable, and for a while we believed him. Frank pauses, his eyes scanning the crowd until they land on Dean in the back row. But time touches everyone, and loss breaks even the strongest of us. Dean feels Frank's gaze, but he doesn't look up. He can't. Frank continues, his voice now shaking. Sammy used to tell me, he called me Charlie. Charlie, when I go, don't you dare cry for me. I lived 10 lifetimes in one. I danced with the best, sang with the best, loved with the best. If I die tomorrow, I'll die happy. Frank's voice breaks. Well, Sammy, you son of a gun, you did just that. You lived. God, did you live? And then Frank Sinatra breaks down. Right there at the podium, in front of 500 people, the chairman of the board, the man who sang My Way like a battle cry, can't hold it together. His shoulders shake. His hands cover his face. Security starts to move toward him, but Frank waves them off. I'm okay, he says, wiping his eyes. I'm okay. Sammy would have kicked my ass for crying like this. A ripple of sad laughter moves through the chapel. But I'm crying because I loved him, and I'm crying because I already miss him, and I'm crying because the Rat Pack, the real Rat Pack, is gone now. It's just me and Dino left, and honestly, I don't know how much longer we can keep pretending we're okay. Everyone's eyes shift to Dean Martin. Dean feels the weight of 500 stares, but he still doesn't move. He sits frozen, his jaw clenched, his hands gripping the edge of the pew so tightly his knuckles are white. Inside he's screaming, inside he's drowning, but outside he remains the king of cool. Frank finishes his speech and returns to his seat. The service continues. More performances, more speeches, more tears. But Dean hears none of it. His mind is somewhere else. Back in 1960, when the Rat Pack was at its peak, when they owned Vegas, when life was golden and death was just a concept, not a constant companion. He remembers a night at the Sands Hotel. Sammy had just finished performing Mr. Bojangles, and the crowd had gone wild. Backstage, Sammy grabbed Dean and Frank and said, "You know what, cats, we're immortal. As long as we're together, we'll live forever." Dean had laughed. "Forever's a long time, Smokey." Sammy grinned that mile-wide grin that could light up a room. "Then let's make it count, baby." And they did. They made it count. Every show, every drink, every laugh, every moment. They lived like there was no tomorrow. But tomorrow came, and it kept coming. And now, one by one, they're leaving. The service ends. People begin to stand, preparing to head to the burial site. But Dean doesn't move. He stays seated, staring straight ahead, his mind 1,000 miles away. "Dino," a voice says gently. It's Frank. He's walked to the back row and placed a hand on Dean's shoulder. "It's time." Dean looks up at Frank, and for the first time that day, the mask cracks. His eyes are wet. "I can't do this, Frank. I can't watch them put him in the ground." "I know," Frank says, his own voice breaking. "But we have to. For him. He'd do it for us." Dean closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, stands. His legs are unsteady, and Frank has to help him balance. Together, the last two members of the Rat Pack walk toward the exit. Outside, the burial procession is forming. Sammy's casket is being carried by 6 pallbearers, including Quincy Jones and Reverend Jesse Jackson. The casket is covered in white roses. Sammy's favorite, Dean and Frank, stand together as the casket is placed onto the platform that will lower it into the ground. The crowd gathers around, forming a circle of mourners. The sky is still bright. Birds are singing. Somewhere in the distance, children are laughing in a park. Life is going on, indifferent to the grief in this place. The Reverend says a final prayer. People toss flowers onto the casket. Some whisper their goodbyes. And then slowly, the casket begins to descend. Dean Martin stands perfectly still, watching. His face is blank. His body is rigid. He looks like a statue. But then something happens. As the casket lowers out of sight, Dean takes a step forward, then another. People part to let him through. He walks slowly, deliberately, until he's standing right at the edge of the grave. He stares down into the earth, at the casket that holds his brother, and then for the first time in 3 years, Dean Martin speaks in public. "Sammy," he says, his voice barely audible, you told me we'd always be together, the 3 of us, you, me, and Frank. You said we'd go out on top, together." His voice cracks. "But you left, Sam, you left me, and I don't know how to do this without you." People around him begin to cry. Frank Sinatra steps closer, tears streaming down his face. Dean's shoulders begin to shake. His hands reach out, trembling, and touch the edge of the grave. "You were my right arm, Sam. When my boy died, I lost my heart. And now you're gone, and I'm just half a man now. I'm nothing." And then Dean Martin collapses. Not physically, he doesn't fall to the ground, but emotionally, he shatters. His knees buckle. Frank and 2 other men rush to hold him up. Dean's face contorts in pain, and he begins to sob. Deep, guttural sobs that seem to come from the very core of his being. The kind of crying that only comes from unimaginable loss. "I can't do this," Dean cries out. I can't lose anyone else. I can't." Frank holds him tightly, tears pouring down his own face. "I know, Dino," Frank whispers. "I know, but you're not alone. I'm here. I'm still here." But Dean isn't listening. He's lost in his grief, in the overwhelming weight of everything he's lost. His son, his career, his voice, his friends, his purpose, and now Sammy, his brother, his right arm. The man who made him laugh when nothing else could. For 50 years, Dean Martin has been the king of cool, the man who never breaks, the man who can handle anything with a smile and a martini. But on May 18th, 1990, that mask finally falls, and the world sees the truth. Dean Martin is human. He hurts, he grieves, he loves, and he's been carrying more pain than anyone realized. As Frank and the others help Dean back to his car, photographers capture the moment. The images will appear in every newspaper the next day. Dean Martin breaks down at Sammy's funeral, but those who were there say the photos don't capture the real story. They don't capture the sound of Dean's sobs, the way his body shook, the way Frank held him like a father, holding a broken son. Dean Martin never fully recovers from that day. He lives for another 5 years, but those who know him say he's never the same. He becomes even more reclusive, even more withdrawn. He stops answering the phone, stops seeing friends. He's lost too much, and he can't bear to lose anything else. On December 25, 1995, Dean Martin dies in his sleep. He's 78 years old. The official cause is acute respiratory failure, but those closest to him know the truth. Dean died of a broken heart. He'd been dying for 8 years, ever since the day his son's plane went down. Sammy's death was just the final blow. At Dean's funeral, Frank Sinatra is too ill to attend, but he sends a message that's read aloud. Dean Martin was the coolest man I ever knew, but he was also the most loving, the most loyal, the most human. He taught me that it's okay to cry, it's okay to break, because that's what makes us real. Rest easy, Dino. You're with Sammy now, and I'll see you both soon. Frank Sinatra dies 3 years later, in 1998, and with him, the Rat Pack era officially ends. But the story of the day the King of Cool cried lives on, because it reminds us that even the strongest people carry pain. Even the most confident people have moments of doubt. Even the coolest people feel the heat of loss. Dean Martin spent his entire life making people smile. He gave joy to millions, but in the end, he was just a man. A father who lost his son, a friend who lost his brothers, a performer who lost his voice. And on May 18, 1990, when he finally let the world see his pain, he gave us something more valuable than any song or movie ever could. He gave us permission to be human, to hurt, to grieve, to fall apart, because even kings cry, and sometimes that's the most courageous thing they can do.